All right, for today's briefing, we are diving straight into a decision that's really going to define the future of our energy security. We're talking about the strategic choice between long-duration energy storage and the lithium-ion batteries we hear so much about.
As we look towards 2026, the whole conversation around energy storage has just fundamentally shifted. This isn't just a technical debate for engineers anymore. Nope, it's now a cornerstone of national security, and it's directly tied to the resilience of our most critical infrastructure.
So here's how we're going to break it down in this explainer. First, the security dilemma itself. Then, we'll look at lithium-ion's role. After that, we'll meet the long-duration challengers. Then comes the strategic showdown. And finally, we'll talk about what it takes to build a truly resilient grid. Okay, so why all the fuss right now? Why has energy storage suddenly become such a critical security issue, especially as we look at 2026? Let's dig in.
Well, the first big reason is just a massive, and I mean massive, surge in demand. Think about it. All the new data centers for AI, plus the huge push for electrification in our cars and our industries, all of it is projected to crank up peak electricity demand by as much as 40%. That is putting a kind of pressure on our grid that it was just never designed to handle.
And all that pressure brings us to this really tough spot. It's often called the energy trilemma. Basically, decision makers are caught trying to juggle three things at once: keeping the grid reliable, making sure energy is affordable for everyone, and hitting our sustainability goals. It's a tricky balancing act, and honestly, the choices we make about energy storage are going to be what helps us navigate it. So to really get a handle on how to solve that trilemma, we have to start with the current champion of the storage market, lithium-ion. Let's take a hard look at its strengths, but also its weaknesses, especially from a strategic security point of view. And make no mistake, its dominance is, well, it's undeniable. I mean, look at this data from 2022. Lithium-ion technology commands over 90% of the entire global rechargeable battery market. That scale, that sheer market power, has been its biggest advantage.
Here's a good way to think about it. Lithium-ion is the sprinter of the energy world. It's incredibly fast, packs a lot of punch in a small package, and it's perfect for those quick bursts of power. But what happens when you need a marathon runner? From a national security standpoint, if you're only relying on a sprinter to get you through a marathon-length crisis, you've got a major vulnerability.
And this really lays out those strategic risks. First, duration. You get about 4 hours. That's just not going to cut it for a multi-day blackout. Then there's the lifespan. We're talking 2 to 10 years. That means constant, costly replacements. And maybe the biggest one for security planners, the supply chain. It's heavily reliant on things like lithium, cobalt, and nickel, which leaves us dangerously exposed to geopolitical risks. Okay, so that brings us to the new kids on the block, the challengers. We're talking about a whole diverse class of technologies known as long-duration energy storage, or LDES for short. And these things are built from the ground up for one purpose: endurance and grid resilience.
First up, we have mechanical storage. A great example is advanced compressed air energy storage. It's really clever. It uses simple, abundant stuff like, air, rock, and water to build these enormous grid-scale assets that last for, get this, over 50 years.
Next, you've got electrochemical flow batteries. Now, these are really different from lithium-ion. Take iron flow batteries, for example. They use electrolytes made from super common, earth-abundant materials. We're talking iron, salt, and water. And here's the kicker. They can cycle over and over again for more than 25 years with absolutely zero decay in their storage capacity. Zero.
And a third major category to look at is thermal storage. This is another really straightforward concept. It uses basic materials like sand or molten salt to store energy in the form of heat. Then, whenever you need it, that heat gets converted back into electricity. It's a scalable, long-duration option with a rock-solid supply chain.
All right, so now it's time for the strategic showdown. Let's put these long-duration challengers right up against lithium-ion and compare them on the metrics that really matter for national security. Right off the bat, the difference in project lifespan is it's striking. A single compressed air facility can run for 50 years or more. Think about that. It can outlive 5, maybe even 10 generations of lithium-ion batteries. The implications for long-term cost and, more importantly, reliability are just enormous. And this right here really drives home the security advantage. With lithium-ion, you're tied to these really sensitive global supply chains for critical minerals. But with these long-duration technologies, you're using secure domestic materials like iron, salt, air, and water.
This is a game changer for reducing our supply chain risk.
Okay, but what about actually building this stuff? I mean, how do we scale it up? Look, Lithium Ion has a huge head start, no question, with its massive global network of gigafactories. But the long-duration technologies have a really smart, different strategy. They're designed to tap into the workforces we already have, skilled people from industries like mining and natural gas. And they can be built using mostly domestic supply chains. So it's a path to scale that also builds up our own industrial strength. That's a powerful combination.
So, when you put all this together, what's the big takeaway? What does this mean for actually building a grid that's secure and resilient? Let's boil it down to the key points for the people making these decisions.
The most important thing to understand is that this isn't about picking one winner to replace the other. That's not the answer. A truly resilient grid, just like a smart investment portfolio, is all about diversification. The goal here is to build a strategic mix of storage assets, making sure we're using the right tool for the right job.
Let's go back to that analogy one last time. A secure grid needs both the sprinters and the marathon runners. You need the sprinters, the lithium ion, for that instantaneous second-by-second grid balancing. But you absolutely 100% need the marathon runners, the long-duration technologies, to give you that multi-day endurance to get through a hurricane, a polar vortex, a supply chain shock, or any other major crisis.
And that really brings us to the final, critical point here. The strategic case is pretty clear-cut at this point. For security planners, the question is no longer if we need long-duration storage as a core part of our national infrastructure. The real question, the one we need to answer now, is how quickly can we build it?